Hello, friend. Good morning. It's a beautiful day. It is the late morning in the foothills of Appalachia. I am in my woods. It's very green, you can see. It's very beautiful. It's very warm. And made myself a cup of coffee this morning, and I was thinking about you. Wanted to have a little chat, and I don't know what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to take a deep breath and meditate together and see what happens. I think today, especially, I've been thinking about how sometimes you feel you're in a liminal space, like you're in limbo, and you don't know which direction to go. And I've been feeling like that lately. And I have a feeling that other people feel the same way. And I've had conversations with people that feel the same way, especially right now. I think there's a lot of changes going on in the world, and there is a lot of uncertainty, both personally and at a global scale. And that's, very broad and ambiguous. I think we could use that for a lot of different points and times in our lives and in history, but not every day, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but I think it is true for now. And I've been thinking about what to do about it, and it seems like there's nothing you can really do. Except for be in kind of a embrace it, be in kind of a receiving energy, acceptance, surrender. These are things that are all synonymous. It's basically allowing what's going to happen. And if you go a little bit deeper, it's really about not controlling what's going on in the world, not being in control. And if you really ponder this, it's almost like you really uncover how much and how many things you don't have control over. And at first that can sound scary, but I think if you have the right attitude and the right mindset about it, it's very freeing. It can be very liberating. Relinquishing control. Because I think when we hold on to a lot of things, you're grasping, you're holding, you're going to drop something. If you're holding on to a lot of things, eventually you're going to drop something. Your grip will give and you'll drop something. And then when you drop something, you realize that there's a lot less tension. We hang on to everything, and we store so much tension in our bodies, and we have so much noise in our minds. It's like when you let it go and you realize, okay, I don't have control over this. It's not my responsibility. I'm not doing anything. And you just allow life and nature to take its course. Take a deep breath. There's a lot of peace and freedom to be had on the other side of that, just relinquishing the control. And that feels good. That feels good. Yeah. And you start to get curious. How much can I let go? Oh, I let go of this. I feel better. I feel lighter. How much more can I let go? What else can I let go of? And there you realize that there's levels to it. there's a greater level of peace and a greater level of freedom the more you relinquish control. And then if you take that to its logical conclusion, you kind of take that to an extreme, at the end of that, you have emptiness. What happens when you have a big barrel of apples? You give away all your apples, you have an empty barrel at the end of it. What makes the barrel useful is its emptiness. If you have a full barrel of apples, you can't use it for another bushel of apples. And I'm kind of using I don't know where barrel came from, but the country version of a very wise story, I guess you could say. It's a parable from Lao Tzu. It was from the Tao Te Ching, and I think it was a few thousand years BC. I think it was like 5,000 years ago or something, like 4,000. You guys can check that for me. I think he used the analogy of a vase, some kind of vessel. It is useful in its emptiness. The reason it is useful is because it's empty. And I believe he used another analogy, same concept, but with a room. If you fill a room with furniture and things and ornate things and gold and it's full and you can't put anything else in there, and it's not as useful as it used to be. But if it's empty, it has its full potential there. It's useful. Got an airplane overhead. Don't get many airplanes, maybe once every so often, but otherwise it's very, very peaceful and very quiet here. And I think we can get to this place of emptiness by letting go of more and more things. I was listening to Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. He's a great philosopher, and he was responsible for bringing a lot of Eastern concepts to the West in the 60s and 70s, and wrote a great number of books. But he has a lot of recorded lectures and audio out there online, and he was talking about this concept of how much we really don't control, but he was talking about it from a context of the ego and the false self. The ego is the false self, and we think that we're in control, and we think we're doing all these things, but we're really not. We're not really controlling anything. And I think that's where these ideas of like enlightenment and emptiness and acceptance and surrender, all these things come from, is when you start to let go of things and realize. And it doesn't have to be super spiritual or religious or woo-woo or anything like that. It's just just a shift. It's just kind of like tilting your head, squinting your eyes, and looking at something a little bit differently. It's very logical if you think about it. He talked about how much you're not doing anything, and even in your own body. Breathing, you don't have to think about it consciously. It's just your body's breathing. Always. You're not doing it. You are, but your conscious mind, which you think is you, is not. So what he was trying to say is that you're much, much more than these thoughts and this ego, this false self. What you think that you, quote unquote, you are doing, you're not really doing it, and there is not really a you there. There's just a doing, and you're observing it. So breathing is one. He said, yeah, you can kind of like bring your consciousness into breathing and, okay, I'm purposely breathing in and out like harder or in a certain way, but you don't have to think about breathing. He talked about really seeing something or really hearing something. Okay, listen to what I'm saying. There's nothing that you can add to listening. You're just listening. There's nothing you can really like add to seeing. When you say, really, really look at this, look hard. And you scrunch up your muscles around your eyes and you really, quote unquote, focus, but you're not really adding anything to seeing. There's no adding to that concept. So there's all these things that we don't really control, even in our own bodies. And then you can get, if you're well versed in anatomy and the human body and biology, it's like there's just infinitely vast number of things that the body's doing that we're not conscious of, that we have no control over. It's just doing it by itself. So what's that about? We're not doing that. We don't have control over it. And if that's just in our own bodies, how much more infinitely complex is outside of our bodies? When you talk about how complex is the organism, how complex is the ecosystem? I have zero control over how these trees grow and the rain falls down and the tilt of the earth and the sun and the moon and the stars, and you zoom out into galaxies and the entire universe. Like there's nothing that we're really doing, and it's a very humbling experience. And I guess this is coming up because it's almost like a balance to everything that we're taught. It's kind of flies in the face of hundreds of years of Western thought and literature and concepts and values. And it's kind of refreshing because it just flies in the face of all of that. I think Western, and I'm going to be very broad strokes here, but you have this big umbrella of what I'll say Western thought. Let's call it Western thought. And you have the do-it-yourself mentality, individualism, and rationalism, and you have bootstrap values. I'm going to do it myself, and you have individuality, and you have I am the master of my life, captain of my soul, and by the sweat of my brow I work, and you can manifest anything you want in your life, and you know, there's this is great stuff, right? I mean, this is there's some truths to all of this. You do have control over your destiny and all of these great things, but I think it needs to be balanced, and I think it needs to be tempered with this idea of you're not really controlling much in the grand scheme of things. And the less you try to control things, and the more you accept things, and the flow of life. I think a lot of people really want to get into, are really interested in flow state. How do I get into flow state and deep work? It's a very small microcosm of what is really out there. Because I want to get into flow state and deep work, in this small microcosm and context of work and making money and proving my worth and the corporate structure and capitalism, and that's fine, that's great, but if you zoom out, there's a flow state to that as you apply it to a specific thing in your life. But if you zoom out, there's an entire flow state to life, and it's called the way, the Tao. Daoism, one of the oldest traditions that humans have, and the Tao Te Ching is just a phenomenal book, and it's so bite-sized. It's basically a handful of pages with little bite-sized parables, sometimes like 1 or 2 sentences. It's very bite-sized, it's very digestible, it's very nice. It's I think there's infinite wisdom in every single parable, and you can kind of just take one for the day and kind of chew on it and just let it last you a lifetime. It's really nice. You can kind of ponder on one for days and weeks, and you'll get different meanings out of it. And I love things like that. But the Tao, or the Tao Te Ching, it's the eminence of the way. And that's what it means. It means the flow of life. There is a giant flow of life that we have no control over. And just sitting back and being in awe of that concept, marveling at this mystical, unknowable force of life that we have no control over, is very wonderful, is very beautiful, and very humbling. And if that flow of life, if that way has created all of the wonders and all of the beautiful feelings and all the things that we know in our life that exist, and all the wonderful things that we, in our imagination, that we haven't known yet or can't ever know. And it's the infinite intelligence that really is the source and flow of all great things. Then why would we want to control that? Why wouldn't we want to become empty vessels to align ourselves with that flow and let that flow take us, so that we're not swimming upstream? Why not jump in the river and go along for the ride, instead of just sometimes literally killing ourselves swimming upstream, drowning ourselves trying to swim upstream, trying to go against this flow. And I think you get there you achieve the flow, and you achieve the surrender of the flow by becoming empty. And it's just simple but not easy, because you have to overcome a lot of things in your mind. First, you have to surrender what you thought life was about. You have to surrender all of these concepts and stories and plans and attachments, emotional damage, and it takes time just to surrender those things, to let those things go, so that you're not as reactive to them. And as you start to let those go, you become emptier and emptier, and you're allowing more of the flow in your life and less of the petty things of the ego. And it's a wonderful thing. You can attain deeper and deeper levels of emptiness, and it's a beautiful thing. And then life becomes fun, because you're along for the ride. You're a sailboat with wind in your sails. You're a kite, and you can fly higher and higher. You're a boat going along the stream, and it's beautiful. But you have to be empty. You have to say, what is this resistance? What is this struggle in my life? And then let it go. Let go of control. And I think that's the whole point. Is to realize that you're not controlling as much as you think, and it's humbling and it's freeing. I think that's how we get to freedom. That's how we get to greater and greater levels of freedom. And it's beautiful. And I think, I don't know, I guess I wanted to share that with you today. I feel like I've achieved a place in my life where I'm the most free that I have been from the past. And I'm looking at, in the future, I'm looking at more and more levels of freedom and emptiness. And because I think that's the way to go. And I wish that for you. I wish less struggle and resistance for you. And I hope that you achieve deeper and deeper levels of freedom and emptiness and acceptance and surrender. And I wish that for you. I hope everyone achieves this. So that's all I got today. Until next time, I hope you return to your magic, and I love you.